Hey everyone, we're going to call this part two of Linda Thompson's interview, and we were on a question that she asked was, okay, Michael, if let's rewind the clock 15 years. Let's say you were getting started and you met someone that was offering this kind of pride of ownership program. What would you do? What would you need to feel comfortable? Is that kind of your question, Linda?
Yes, that's perfect. I want to get your insight on
Yeah.
how you would approach it.
Yeah. So for me, right, just knowing who I was 15 years ago, the thing that I would have to overcome is understanding the difference between a cheap house and a pride of ownership house. And what I mean by that is the numbers, and more specifically, the cash is what I didn't understand. So let's walk through an example. Let's just say there's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. You can, and again, to make the numbers really simple, we can either buy it perfect for 150 grand, or we can buy it cheap for 100 grand. And cheap means it's run down, needs new carpet, kitchen update, bathroom, all that stuff, right? So the two different conditions. So when I started, without any help or coaching or advice, I would always gravitate to the 100K because 100K is cheaper than 150, right? Simple, right? However, after reflection and realizing who I was and what I had for a day job and all of that stuff, it was a mistake. But let's run through the numbers. So why was it a mistake? Well, first off, every time I bought a 100K house, I bought it because it was under rented, right? It may be rented for 800 when it should have been 1,000, or it was 900 when it should have been 1,200. So again, my mistake wow, I can buy it for 100. I'll go and raise rents to market and the tenant will stay and yay, my spreadsheet looks great. But then reality sets in. You go in and you raise rents $200 or $300 for a house that is run down. The tenants go, no, thank you. And best case, they leave, which usually they don't. They then force you to evict them because they stop paying rent. And in California, that's probably 3 months of lost rent. Best case, maybe 4. So immediately, I've had 4 months of no rent, but my mortgage payments still go out. After 3 months, 4 months, whatever it is, I then still have to go in and spend 20 to 25 grand repairing it. And then after 6 months total, I finally get a tenant in at market. So what has happened? I've lost 6 months, maybe 4 months, best case. I have made probably $20,000 in equity, what some people call forced appreciation, right? Because I bought for 100, I spent 30 for an asset that's worth 150. So my balance sheet probably looks okay, and that's how I kept selling it to myself was, wow, I just artificially made 20 grand. Yay, I'm a genius. But I just wasted cash because I spent 20 grand for the down payment. And then I spent 20 to 30 grand on the make ready. And what I should have done is I should have bought the 150K house that was perfect because I would have spent $30,000 on the down payment and I would have had more money for my next purchase. I didn't understand that until I looked back. And that's what I had to get comfortable with. I basically could finance the repair cost. Does that make sense?
That does.
Yeah.
And how would you have gotten comfortable with this market with if you decided to go with the make ready program?
I'd have to
how
go.
How would you get comfortable with the valuation and the rents and all the numbers that's in the net ROI?
Yeah.
That's sent to you, and you're like, how do I know if that property management fee is right or not? How would you get comfortable with all the numbers and the market?
I would have to spend some time with the team and asking questions. And ask everything before I commit a dollar, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to give you some time on the weekends and meet people and ask questions and walk through stuff. That's part of the investigation. Probably what we didn't do when the stock market time, 20 years ago, that we'll do now because we don't want to make mistakes.
Exactly.
But that's part of investigating the market for sure.
And it's possible to do this if you only have weekends to go down to Fresno.
Yeah. And again, some people are surprised by this, but even now, 16 years later, I've never spent the night in Fresno. And I did not go to Fresno other than Saturday or Sunday, probably for a decade.
Wow.
Yeah.
I honestly thought he must have a house down there. He stays there for weeks on end. How does he do this on, just going on a day trip,
No, yeah, we're out of the house by 7. It's actually become so routine, right? We grab coffee at 7:30.
Uh-huh.
We either stop in Gilroy or Los Banos for another drink or a pit stop. We go to Fresno. We spend 2 or 3 hours. Then we drive back. We typically stop in Los Banos on the way back to fill up the tank, grab a Coke or something, and head home. And we're home best days by 4. Some days when we have a long time in Fresno, it's 7, right? So it can be 8 to 12-hour days, but it's only one day. And, we're looking at between 3 and 8 properties. And we still have fun every day. We still have fun every trip.
That's great. And so I do want to ask, because you've gone through a market correction in Fresno, a big one.
Yeah.
So you've probably seen how ugly it can get.
Yes.
So if we were to get one of these homes and everything's going great, and all of a sudden we get a market correction, probably not nearly as bad as it was last time, but it could be something different. It could be apartments this time instead of homes, as you suggested. How do you manage? I mean, I don't want to buy something and then all of a sudden I've got a cash flowing thing and all of a sudden it becomes an alligator because the rents, the market, people lose their jobs and then all of a sudden the rents go down or you have to offer a ton of concessions until the market recovers. Now you said your rents went up, which I just don't understand when people are losing their jobs and vacancies are going up and how's that possible? Maybe you can explain to me, how do we protect ourselves so that we don't create an alligator after all?
So there's a lot in that question. I'll go through a couple of different things. So we've been in the market for 16 years, and the only time we had to offer rent concessions was actually during the boom, which is like 2006 to 2008. And that's because all these renters were getting these fake or bad mortgages and becoming homeowners, right? So that's the only time we've had to offer concessions is when everybody thought they could be a homeowner because they could sign their name. So now let's fast forward and the crash happens and all these would-be homeowners unfortunately lost their homes and very stressed. And I don't want to belittle how bad that was. It was horrible. But we saw occupancy increase and we saw rents increase because the demand for quality rentals, affordable rentals went up. Even the people that had good jobs, right, that were maybe renting in A+ areas, they came down to B+ areas. And then the people that were Bs came to Cs. So I always focus on high Cs or low Bs. So my pool of renters have never gotten stressed except for that one artificial loan window from 06 to 08. Otherwise, when the crash happened, rents went up, occupancy went up. My net worth went down. But again, I didn't care, right? I my bills are not paid because of my net worth. They're paid off my income statement. And my cash flow went up, my rents went up, and I was much happier. But yeah, I was worth 40% less because the market crashed, but I didn't care. I could hold for the long term. And that's why I recommend conservative financing, right? That's why I tell people who are in our situations to put 30% down. Yeah. I understand the bank will approve you with 20% down, but you want super low risk. So put the extra 10% down, make it a no-brainer, and just keep doing your day job and let this, tick on by. So that's kind of what happened.
And during that time, you didn't have to reserve more for, vacancies were a little longer to fill.
No houses, no issues. Houses rented lickety split. We're talking, hours sometimes between when the old tenant moved out and the new one moved in during the crash. Even apartments, because some people who, again, it was the only time that was bad to be a landlord and rent concessions was everybody thought they could be a homeowner. And then the other thing about Fresno is I've invested through 2 significant recessions. Both the crash that we're talking about here, but also the .com crash, right? You and I remember that from the Silicon Valley. Yep. Fresno sailed through that, no issues, right? They have no real tech jobs. Their income is agricultural based. It's one place in California you can live happily on $50,000 a year. So they sailed through the .com crash, lickety split, no problems. So it's nice having a balanced economy. I like Fresno, unlike some smaller markets, because there's 1 million people in the county. Right. So there's always tenants looking for, safe, secure housing, especially of quality. It's one of the few counties in California that's growing, right? The counties that we live in, Santa Clara County, is shrinking because you can't freaking afford to live here. Fresno is growing. So I see a lot of good things, and it's still in California and it's 2.5 hours away. So it's pretty nice.
Fantastic. And is it possible to get a couple references of investors that have been in your program for couple purchases just to hear their experiences, what they've learned, any advice they can give, in terms of financing and other things they've done to try to get properties and add more properties to your program?
Sure. No problem. I would happily do that.
Fantastic. Well, I think those were my my big questions just to get comfortable with. I mean, I just want to get comfortable with Fresno and just feel like I know what I'm buying before I buy it. But it seems like you have such an amazing program. Almost seems too good to be true. But you just, I get the sense that you're, you've learned a lot. You've taken your time to build your portfolio, and you want to share with other people. And I just feel like you're genuine. One of the few out there that's not like, here's my program here, real estate scam number 50. I just feel like you're just a real caring, general person, genuine person that wants to help people. And I just feel like this is such a great program. I feel lucky to be able to participate.
Yep. Well, I appreciate that. I do believe you just put it all out there and you share, good things will happen. And again, I do this because I thoroughly enjoy it. I thoroughly enjoy helping people. And if I didn't do this, I would unfortunately go back and get a tech job. And I don't want another tech job. I'm happy doing this.
We all dream to be you, to be able to quit our job. Don't go back, please.
Very, very cool.
And we definitely would love to celebrate if we can get to the place you are. Hopefully that's our goal in 10 years,
Yeah. And again, something else I'm big on is, putting financial freedom as a goal is awesome. And it should be, lots of people's goals. But I've now come to believe if most people should just get to 4. I think if people just got to 4 rentals, especially conservatively financed cash flowing rentals, their financial future is changed forever. Because by the time these 4 get paid off, you'll have, I don't know, pick a number, 800 grand, $1 million in real estate. You could sell them, you could refi them. Inflation's going to happen. Rents will go up. Life gets better if you just get to 4. When I share our story, sometimes people they go like, I can't get 175. How am I going to do that? And they just are frozen. I'm telling them, stop it. Just think about getting to 4. When we get to 4, we'll have another conversation. And we'll say, is 4 enough? Are you good? Or do you want to go to 10? Right? We have to take smaller steps, in my opinion. So let's talk about getting you to 4 first. And then we'll talk about 10 after. And then after 10, we talk about financial freedom. Is that a deal?
That sounds like a great deal. Now you're recommending homes right now versus duplexes and triplexes and stuff.
Yeah. Again, I find occasionally triplexes or quads that will make sense. I did a walkthrough of an ugly one over the weekend. I still think it's possible, but nothing on the MLS makes sense to me. I actually, and you alluded to this, I think in part 1, I actually think multifamilies, the 2s through 4s, could be seeing such a bubble that people buying them today will lose them, or maybe not lose them, but maybe give them back in 2 to 4 years. Cause they just don't make sense. I own a lot of them. And if prices go up another 20%, I may just sell because the prices are stupid. And I did it last time, right? I sold houses when housing prices were stupid. So yeah, I'm scared enough that I've done a couple of videos on it. Cause again, I like to help people, but I also like to help them from hurting themselves if I can.
Yeah. And I've worked for developers who do the syndication, and they have funds and they buy apartments in Class A areas of the Bay Area, all over the West Coast. And, they're underwriting, 10%, 15% rent growth in order to be able to compete with 20, 30, 40 bids of people all over the country trying to get these prime assets in key markets. And I was like, how is this? How can you pen this to typically get those kind of rents or to get exit out and get the returns you're hoping to get? So yeah, I just said, I don't want to play this game. Yeah. I'd rather do what you're doing, simple, one rental at a time.
Yes.
Reliable properties, hold them for the long term. Don't play this short term game of flipping properties. I don't know. It just scares me.
Yeah. Me too.
With the syndication game where you're competing with 40 other people and everyone's bidding each other up. I just don't want to be in that game.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I think that sweet spot between 5 and 20 units, nobody seems to want to play in that market. I think that's a really good market to be in. I think everyone wants to be 75 units or larger and in the Class A areas. And it's just, that's just a crazy game that people are playing right now.
Yeah, I'll just close with one example. I'm often remiss or reminded that the Japanese, I don't remember which company, bought Pebble Beach years ago, or probably decades ago now, during the last rise, and they lost hundreds of millions of dollars when they finally sold it back just because you pay silly prices, and you just got to pay attention. It's not a market I want to play in today. It's not a market I'm going to push. It'll change, right? 5, 6, 7 years from now, maybe multis would be great.
Yep.
In the 16 years I've been doing this, it's the one time I'm like, ooh, be careful, people. So we agree.
And that may be the next crash where the opportunities will be. So we'll see.
There you go. Well, very cool, Linda. Thank you for doing this. I loved all the questions to walk through. I'm sure it will help people. I will download both these videos and upload them today. And then I'll also send off an introductory email to a couple of people so you can get to meet them without me being involved and see what they have to say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate your time.
All right. Take care. Thanks, Linda.
Bye.
Bye.